Hello, everyone. Welcome into a PHLY, for lack of a better term, emergency podcast brought to you by Indeed. This emergency podcast is brought to you by Indeed. Listeners of this show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to get the jobs you need, more visibility at Indeed.com/all-city. That's Indeed.com/all-city. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And that's exactly what the Phillies did, Tyler. They went out there and they hired one of the best arms on the market in terms of bullpen arms as the Phillies acquire right-hander Carlos Estévez from the Anaheim Angels. The price they paid, fairly steep. But these guys, by most scouts, Sam Aldegheri, who we've talked about many times over the course of the winter, and recently finding the strike zone flamethrower George Klassen go to the Anaheim Angels. But Tyler, I'm going to let you chime in here. Carlos Estévez, 31 years old, an expiring contract. He has absolutely been a bullpen star the last 2 years. We'll deep dive some of these numbers. But what he is a guy that throws on average 96 miles an hour, and he's different from other Phillies flame-throwing bullpen arms. Tyler, this guy loves pounding the strike zone. His K to walk rate is phenomenal. This guy throws strikes, and it's clear the Phillies wanted somebody that they can rely on that can throw strikes. And this is a very significant move for the Phillies.
Yeah, and you brought it up, right? You talk about moving Klassen, you talk about moving Aldegheri. You probably were going to need to move one of these guys to get a high leverage bullpen piece.
Yeah.
Or am I a little bit surprised that they moved both? I am. I think that they like both of these guys. We talked about both and talked to Aldegheri in spring training.
Yeah, really nice kid.
And it's funny, they go about their business in two entirely different ways. Klassen is the type of guy that throws heat and has recently, like you mentioned, found the strike zone. Aldegheri's been the type of guy who is going to have to be a pitcher and not a thrower to get the job done. Doesn't throw particularly hard. So am I surprised that they were willing to move on from both of those guys? A little bit. But this is proving to me that the Phillies recognize what deficiencies they do have. I know there were a lot of people. I think you're like in a camp of you either loved Klassen or you loved Aldegheri, early in the season, either stuff or this guy's, a pitcher's pitcher type of guy. But the Phillies are Dave Dombrowski is recognizing the deficiencies that maybe this team has. And I've been saying for a while, I've been trying to get you guys on the Carlos Estévez train for a while now. His walk to strikeout to walk ratio is amongst the best of his career. He's throwing a ton of strikes. He's not walking guys. Last year had a little bit of a walk problem, had a little bit of a whip problem. But over the course of the last 20 outings that he's been a part of, he's allowed exactly 0 runs. He also has
since Memorial Day when the Phillies actually got to him.
Yeah. He also has a whip under 0.8 this season. I believe he's 0.758.
Oh, Tyler, let me play my little violin with some of the beautiful numbers here that Carlos Estevez has. This is part of the Phillies press release here. On the year, the 31-year-old has a 2.38 ERA with 9 earned runs in 34 innings, a .74 whip, 5 walks with only 20 hits allowed in 34 appearances. Among the 374 pitchers in Major League Baseball this year with at least 30 innings pitched, Estevez's .74 whip ranks 3rd, trailing only the guy we saw last night, Emmanuel Clase, who is absolutely filthy, and Hunter Gaddis. He is 20.
Has been sneaky disgusting this year. Doesn't get talked about because he's a setup guy. Probably the best reliever in baseball in Emmanuel Clase, but Hunter Gaddis has been sneaky nasty this year.
Yeah, that's a nasty 8-9. Estevez is 20 for 23 on the year in save opportunities this year, and since May 20th has converted each of his last 14 and has posted a .64 ERA with only 1 earned run in 14 innings and a .36 whip with 2 walks, 3 hits in those save opportunities. Now, it's funny. I was talking to Julia, who's producing the show, and she said, should I call him a closer? And I said, historically, yes, that would be a safe way to put things. But in the present day of Major League Baseball, I don't want to write high leverage bullpen arm because I don't think he's necessarily going to be
Do it, coward.
I don't think he's the nightly closer per se. And I think Matt Gelb already said he's not necessarily the closer. He's another one of these stud stable of high leverage arms that Rob Thompson is going to have at his disposal to implement wherever he sees fit, given the nightly matchup.
We've talked about this. It's funny because when you look externally at teams that don't use a closer versus internally, the thought process is entirely different. We have looked at this team internally as high leverage for the bulk of the season.
But they gave Jose the chance. They gave him the opportunity.
Right. And I know that people have varying levels of opinions on high leverage. You get somebody like myself who is super fine with high leverage matchup decision bases because we've seen it over, the course of the last 2 years. Like Craig Kimbrell was your closer last year, but you also had matchup-based high leverage guys. Jose Alvarado was your high leverage lefty. Jeff Hoffman was your high leverage righty. Matt Strahm was somebody that you could trust as well. And this year they've gone even further in that direction. They have, they've mixed and matched in terms of who's going to pitch in what particular spots. Sometimes it's burns you, and sometimes there's success with it. This guy is going to slot into a high leverage bullpen. Yeah. He's not going to slot in as your closer. He's not going to slot in as your 7. He's not going to slot in as your 8. He's going to be where Rob Thompson needs him to be. And that's what something that you, me, Renee, John, Jim have all talked about over the last couple of weeks is this team is going to acquire, they might acquire somebody's closer.
I think there's another move to come still.
I do too. What I'm saying is they might acquire somebody's closer, sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be their closer. Yeah, so absolutely. They acquired the Angels closer that is probably going to pitch. He might pitch sometime in the 7th. He might pitch in the 8th. He may be a closer at times. They're going to mix and match, and they're going to continue to do it. They're going to use Hoffman in the 9th. They're going to use Estevez in the 9th. I know people don't want to hear this. They will use Alvarado in the 9th at times. Yeah,
he looked good last night.
They're going to mix and match based on matchups and what works best for them. So you may see Estevez get outs 19, 20, 21. You may see Estevez get outs 25, 26, and 27. They are going to put themselves in a spot now where they have another high leverage guy that they have the ability to use in any given spot out of the bullpen to have success, and it pushes everybody else below him down. It moves Kerkering down a slot. It moves Soto down a slot. It moves all of these guys down one peg to a point where they probably should be. And now,
it's a very good point because now you don't have to trust Orion in, what is basically, what did he have? 7 batters last postseason, 8 batters, like still a very small sample size of a huge opportunity. So those guys all drop down a little bit. So Carlos Estévez, if you're unfamiliar with him, he's a big boy, Tyler. If you're a sizist, this guy's 6'6". He's got a little bit of belly to him. Me and pitchers, I always like a little bit of belly to my pitchers. He faced 124 batters this year. Look at his slash line: 169, 202, 288 with a 490 OPS. He's 11th out of 374 pitchers with that 30-inning qualifying mark. He's been phenomenal. Just to catch you up on speed on him, he throws primarily 4 pitches: a 4-seamer, a slider, a changeup, and a curveball. Most of the time, almost 63% of the time, you're getting the heat, which averages out at 96 miles an hour. 27% of the time, he's going to throw the slider, which hits about 89 on average. His changeup is about 11% of the time, and then you rarely ever see the curve. But this guy brings a lot to the table. He was an all-star last year and set an Angels franchise record, converting his first 23 save opportunities to begin the year, eclipsing the previous mark held by, this guy in the Hall of Fame named Lee Smith.
Yeah, I've heard of him. He was pretty good.
And with the baseball.
And the one thing too is, the one thing we talked about earlier, what was it, Friday or Thursday? We talked about this guy. Whatever, Thursday, I think it was.
Yeah, luckily we had him on the sheet Thursday.
We have acknowledged that he does get hit hard at times, right? His hard hit percentage is
but he hasn't allowed home runs this year.
He's keeping the ball in the ballpark.
Yeah, which is good.
Maybe he's benefited a little bit from, a little bit of lucky play, and that's totally fine. You need that at times. But the like you talked about it, the thing that's most important, his whip is down, his walk rate is down. So yes, his strikeout rate is down a little bit, but you take a lower strikeout rate if you also will take into account the lower walk rate. The whip is low. He's not giving up. Obviously not giving up runs, a 2.3 ERA. So if you want to talk about it just strictly from a numbers standpoint, this year is actually better than last year. He was an all-star last year and he's been better this year. He's not striking out as many guys as he was a season ago. And
with a 0.7 whip, Tyler, I don't care.
Matter. So here's the thing. Like, throughout the course of a season, you're going to need to get a little lucky, right? So this guy at times, just from a hard hit standpoint versus the number standpoint, from a barrel standpoint versus the number standpoint, from like not generating a ton of swing and miss versus a number standpoint, maybe he is getting a little lucky this season.
I don't care.
I don't care as long as you get
that luck on our side. Get
the 3 outs that are required. So this is a guy that I have talked about for a while. We've talked about him plenty. To put it as succinctly as I can, is it a slight overpay for a rental? Perhaps. But I think
that signifies a pushing of the chips. Like, screw it, we're in.
Sure. I also could look at this in a way where maybe you have a George Klassen overachieving. His numbers have come back down to earth since he's gone to high A.
So I just wanted to actually pivot the conversation to Sam and George here because, on paper, we've talked about these guys at length since the winter. We sat down with Sam and Clearwater. Both are kind of high risers within the Philly system this year. Aldegheri is hoping to become the first Italian major league pitcher in 74 years. Really great story, really great kid. He's 22 years old. On the year, 6-7, 3.23 ERA and 15 starts. Between Jersey Shore and Reading. Kind of, as you said, him and Klassen both have taken a little step back since their promotion. And I think Klassen, who we've talked about, came out of Minnesota, the Northwoods League, all that, 22 years old. He's been 3-2 for the year. Flamethrower. We nicknamed him the Flaming Pickle. Has a sub-2 ERA this year in 14 starts between Clearwater and Jersey. So both of these guys projected at the next level as kind of that mid-rotation kind of peak, like a number 3 at best. Of course, players can always beat those expectations. But as you just alluded to, both guys, when they took the step up this year, struggled a little bit. Nothing like too worrisome, but they might be selling at a high. So obviously we'll keep eyes on Sam and George as they move to the Anaheim system. But the Phillies could be taking advantage of some high risers within the system and kind of selling them at their peak here.
So listen, could 4 years from now, 5 years from now, it be wild to see the Heat coming out of the back end of the Angels bullpen when you pair George Klassen and Ben Joyce together? If both were, because listen, I know.
Don't worry about that in 4 years.
George Klassen has started games. I think you and I are probably on the same page with him. He's a major league reliever. If he were to make the major leagues, right?
Just found the strike zone this year. His struggled throwing strikes his whole career.
So you can sit here and say maybe it's an overpay for what you would deem a rental. And also, I don't think I see either of these guys, should they make the majors, for probably another 3 or 4 years minimum. So
22, you're maybe 2 years, but maybe 3.
So and to be honest with you, if I had to say who gets there first, Klassen's stuff is clearly better. Does Aldegheri's stuff play as a pitcher versus a thrower? More quickly elevating him through the ranks? It's plausible. I don't think I see either of these guys until probably 2026, 2027 in the major league level at best. So to me, if you can find a way to re-sign Estevez at the end of the year, assuming you like what you've gotten out of him in this, presumed stretch run, You're talking about the acquisition of a high leverage reliever for two guys that probably won't see the majors for 3 or 4 years. If they pan out at that point, good on them.
I
Tip of the
think
cap to
possibly
them.
2. I think possibly 2 for these guys.
Okay,
22
so
years old, high rising, kind of moving up the system. But yeah, to your point, it's going to be a little bit. So the Phillies
good on them.
you're saying screw it.
So, and I see it in the chat. If Estevez is truly a rental, then you overpaid. Like if he's somewhere else next year, you probably overpaid to
But he's
acquire.
31, to your point. He still
For the
probably
year.
has 2 to 3 more years in his prime. If you like what you see, you sell him on the culture. He wins. He feels good. Yeah, not like you're going to get a hometown discount, but you would get a firsthand look of, do I want to give this guy a 2 or 3 year deal?
Correct. In terms of the potential to lock down an inning a night for what could be a World Series contending team,
Sure.
I think you can say both are true. Like two things can be true at once. You probably overpaid for a rental, and you also locked down a spot that you needed to lock down with what you've seen over the last 2 weeks, where you have a really, really good bullpen that is starting to get taxed a little bit. Now your bullpen is even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And big kudos to the Phillies front office. Look, it may not be Luis Robert and Randy Arozarena and Tanner Scott, but this is a significant deadline for the Philadelphia Phillies. They're going for it. And the ability to get Austin Hayes, who started his Phillies career tonight with a single up the middle, he looked pumped. To not give up prospects for him kind of allows you this ability to go in for an Estevez in a prospect heavy way. Very interesting trade. He's a guy we've talked about. He's a guy we've wanted. He is a legit big time move. I think it was Bob Nightingale tweeted out that the Phillies are putting their foots on throats and going for it. Jeff Passan has been singing the praises. The best staff in baseball gets better and stronger. And Tyler, if I had to bet right now, I would think another lower leverage type of bullpen move is likely to happen still. I do not rule out that the Phillies are not done here.
You and I don't disagree on the sense that I think that another move is to come. Where you and I disagree, especially after the news that Ranger Suarez hit the IL today.
You think they're going for another big one?
No. I don't think they're going for another big name. I think they're going for a starter. I do think they go acquire a starter.
Yeah, the Ranger IL trip does.
Ranger hits the IL. We don't know.
It's retroactive, though, so he'll be back relatively soon, I think, when they go to Arizona.
It's retroactive to the 24th, which means he will miss up to, the 3rd of August?
They're saying the Arizona series. It looks like he could be
so with Ranger hitting the IL, with Tyler Phillips, he's been really nice in his starts, but I don't know how long that plays. With the fact that Taijuan Walker is still coming back from injury. Spencer Turnbull, you and I have talked about this. I'm not sure Spencer Turnbull pitches again this year.
I'm not counting on him for anything.
So while Taijuan Walker will return eventually, I would not be stunned if they go and make a move for a guy who could be a swing gate type of guy who could start in the short term and could be your multi-inning guy out of the bullpen in the long run. I'm not sitting here and saying that they're going to go acquire like a Jack Flaherty. But I do believe that they could potentially go get a back-end starter guy with bullpen experience. And that's where I think that their final move comes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, on Tuesday, we have the trade deadline show coming up from Billy Murphy Saloon in East Falls. And by the way, Tyler, I ate the leftover half of the hamburgers.
Mine is waiting for me, and I can't.
Oh, man. Guess what I did? I had it for breakfast.
That's a bold move.
I know. It was real bold. I was making the girls eggs and bacon, and I just didn't feel that because I knew the burger was in the fridge. So I had that. So Tuesday, Billy Murphy Saloon in East Falls, brought to us by our friends at Miller Lite. We're going to be doing the trade deadline special show from 5 to 7. We both kind of think something else is still in the works here as the Phillies are going for it. But we're going to wrap up because it's Saturday night and people have lives. But bottom line, emergency podcast worthy. Carlos Estévez is a big time move for the Phillies. They really just bolstered their bullpen big time. You come out tomorrow, Sunday, it looks like with a chance to take this series from the Cleveland Guardians. In other MLB news, there's already been a couple other trades tonight. The big one, Jazz Chisholm is going to the New York Yankees. A couple other trickle down moves around the league. So it looks like it's going to be a really fun trade deadline on Tuesday. A lot's happening.
And the stopper's doing it again tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Tyler Phillips again, right?
I know. This kid's been he's been money. The last three times he's gone out, he's been the stopper for the Phils. So great stuff to everybody that chimed in or is watching along with us. We appreciate your time. I know you can spend it anywhere. Thanks for spending it with us. Tyler, have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you Monday morning at 11 a.m. Unless, of course, the Phillies make another trade tomorrow or later tonight. We'll be on call. If it's after 9 p.m., I cannot guarantee my sobriety. So, stick with us, but we'll be here doing it for you.
Well, to put it succinctly, the Phillies got better tonight.
A lot better.
All we can ask for.
This guy throws strikes. He throws strikes. He throws strikes. That is a very comforting blanket to have in the MLB playoff format. So for Tyler Zulli, I'm Jamie Lynch. Thank you to our friends at Indeed. If you need the right resume to find your way on your desk as a hire, please visit Indeed and use code ALLCITY to get a $75 sponsored job credit. They sponsor all of our emergency podcasts here, and it's an emergency when you need an employee. So use Indeed to find the best. Thank you to everybody for checking us out tonight. The Phillies got a lot better. Carlos Estevez, come on down. You are a Philadelphia Philly. We'll see you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.